Hello and welcome to Podtoid. We are your host. I'm CJ.
I'm Chris.
I'm Charlotte.
I'm Occams.
And this is episode 404. Welcome to the Podtoid Pre-E3 Death Stranding Ghostbusters Extravaganza. Did I miss any other names I should throw in there for maximum SEO?
Godzilla, some Godzilla later.
Okay, so the Podtoid Pre-E3
Death... That's not going
Death...
to get us any SEO.
No, it's not, given how much money it's probably not making in theaters right now. But we have a good show for you today. This is our last show before E3, so we're going to cover a bunch of that. We're going to talk about some fractured buttholes, some Final Fantasy XIV, some Crisis with Crystals, Mortal Kombat, and a whole bunch more. We also have community questions, as it's the first episode of the month. And be sure to stay tuned after the show for a new installment of Spoilsport, where Occams and I will talk about... Oh, shivers down my spine.
Legally Blonde 3.
Yeah. Yeah, so stay tuned after the show for that, for some riveting Legally Blonde 3 conversation. But to start today's show, I was going through the news looking for something dumb to start us out with, and I had a few choices. There was a guy in who broke into a Pennsylvania elementary school in the middle of the night, stripped naked, covered his body in oil, and slid across the gym floor. There was a school bus driver who blamed a bad donut on failing a field sobriety test while she was driving the bus with students inside. But then Occam sent me this story, and it's exactly the type of story that we need to start these shows with. So we're going to go to Washington, D.C., capital of America, where a class from Holy Family Catholic High School was on a field trip to see the nation's capital. That's something you generally do when you live on the East Coast and you live close enough to Washington, D.C. On the West Coast, we take them to Disneyland. It's basically the same thing. Anyway, along for the trip was the school principal named Michael Comiu. I think that's how you pronounce that. Obviously, he was having his fill of chaperoning teenagers around D.C., so Comiu decided to go and sneak off for a little adult entertainment. That's right, this principal of a Catholic high school decided to go to a strip club on a school field trip. He did not take any of his students with him, which is probably for the best, because according to reports, around 2:30 in the morning on Friday, Archibald Gentleman Club, ooh, classy because it has gentlemen's in the title, they called the police to report a heavily intoxicated man who was refusing to pay his bill. That man, of course, was Comiu, and when police arrived, they found him standing in the middle of the street, refusing to move. He was arrested for public intoxication and being in possession of an open container of alcohol. Obviously, he resigned as principal of the school, and apparently also he was serving as a reserve police officer with the Brushley Police Department for at least 6 months. He resigned from that as well. Have you guys ever chaperoned around kids? Because I sympathize with him of wanting to get away from teenagers and just to go enjoy yourself.
All I'm thinking is, if they lived on the other coast, what the fuck would he have done at Disneyland?
Oh my gosh. Chaperoning kids when you go to a theme park with them must be the absolute worst. So many kids wanting to throw up. I remember going to on these trips and so many kids threatening to chunder everywhere.
That was me. I was those kids.
I'm adding chunder to my lexicon, by the way. I've never heard that before. Chunder is great.
I can appreciate the idea of him wanting to blow off some steam after a day of having to be around a bunch of muling crotchlings. I get it. But I know people who have chaperoned before for a variety of things. And what they do is they just all gather together and they go have a drink at a bar, and maybe they have one too many drinks at a bar and someone else helps them home. But none of them, they don't go to strip clubs, and they certainly don't get so shit-faced they refuse to pay their bill. That's my favorite part of it. Because if the guy had just gone to a strip club and just drank and gone home, this wouldn't be a story.
Right.
But he had to refuse to pay the fucking bill. That's great. Oh, that's wonderful.
The only thing I know about chaperoning, I learned from the WWE produced movie The Chaperone, starring Triple H.
Is that the one that had the daughter from Modern Family in it?
It might have been. I wouldn't know.
Okay.
It might have been her. But yeah, he's a if I remember, he's like a kooky kind of bank robber who's trying to reconnect with his daughter.
Oh
So he
God.
agrees to chaperone like a school class trip, but then like his associates are like, "I've thought of a heist we can do along the way," or something like that.
Do you think in like the career projection for like big guys or ex-wrestlers turned movie stars, they all have to do that movie? Because what The Rock had Tooth Fairy, I know that Hulk Hogan had what was it like?
Suburban
shit.
Commando.
Fucking Mr.
Yeah.
Nanny, Santa
Yeah,
with
with-
muscles.
I thought Suburban Commando too, but I think it was like Mr. Nanny or something. Yeah,
Okay,
because
yeah.
Suburban Commando was actually a wonderful movie that everyone should watch. Wink.
Plus, you're just treated to the white hot star power of Triple H and his acting ability. Oh God, he must have just dazzled every scene he was in.
Yeah, he's not quite on the Rock level in terms of acting ability from the small amount of professional wrestling that I've seen.
Well, The Rock has charisma, and charisma can carry you a long way. Like Queen Latifah. Queen Latifah has charisma. That's why she's so entertaining to watch. Does it make her a great actor? Not necessarily, but she's entertaining to watch.
And I have a friend who has worked with her in the movies because he works in the movie field, and she is a delight to be around. Very
bet she
kind
is.
to the cast and crew.
Ah, I want to meet her.
Yeah.
My only experience with chaperoning kids, aside from having to push my nephew stroller around, I was a camp counselor for my senior year of high school, and I was a counselor to kids who were in 5th grade going into middle school. Boy, I really wanted to get away for a drink on that because God damn, those kids were annoying. So yeah, I completely, going back to our story, I completely sympathize with him, but I just wondering what was going through his mind before he decided to go get drunk, that going to a strip club was the best possible idea. I mean, not only are you a high school principal, but you're a Catholic high school principal. Surely that just must be like a double no for you to go into a strip club.
That's just going nuclear. Like, he wanted to end his professional life.
It does come
Like-
across, it does almost come across like that, I think.
It's a bit too much. Like, he could have done something a bit milder to get himself fired.
Well, I'm shocked as a Catholic school principal he didn't go to like a barely legal strip club, or
Okay.
if there's a combination barely legal gay strip club, that would make even more sense.
All right, so let's go ahead and get talking about some games. And Chris, we're going to go ahead and start with you.
I've been playing some Mortal Kombat, but we'll probably talk about that a little later.
Yeah.
So I'll leave it. Other than that, I've not really played too much. I jumped back into Overwatch, which I've been neglecting pretty much since the start of the year, to be honest. I've been playing it since it first launched. And I genuinely, for all its flaws and for all people want to say about it, like it's one of my favorite games of all time. That, like, of everything I've played, and I've been playing games since fucking 86 or something. Do you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
that's a pretty big pedigree. The only thing I'm struggling with the game at the moment, I know you can attest to this, CJ, because you're feeling it as well, is I do feel that the gameplay has gone down a grade in terms of it feels that people are getting sloppier, like lazier and sloppier. So I'm concerned that even amongst the fans, there's like a waning interest to win. I see a lot of people they'll start out games and they'll start pretty well, but as soon as they start losing, they make really bad decisions. And these are people who've got like really high rankings and really high scores. And it feels like people are a lot quicker to go, fuck it, when they're playing now, and make like rash decisions. And in a team-based game, that basically kind of fucks the matchup for everybody. So I still love Overwatch and I'm enjoying playing it. I think I'll enjoy playing it until no one's playing it. But there has been, over the last, say, 10 months, you can vouch for this, there's been a definite drop in kind of quality of the people you're playing with online. And I feel that unless you're playing with your friends all the time, it's really hard to get a good game out of randoms, as the kids say.
Yeah. So since the last season started of season play for Overwatch, I've done nothing but competitive. Like I've left quick play behind just because I wanted to see if maybe, the year and a half or so I've been playing the game, my skills are actually good enough to be considered strong enough for competitive play. And it's really interesting because if there's no one on the communication talking to each other, you have those situations like you just said where people will get sloppy. They'll pretty much give up right after like you lose a checkpoint or something like that. And
Right.
it gets really annoying. There have been multiple instances of competitive play where, my character gets shot down and then you can, go see what the other players on your team are doing. And you just see a Sombra hiding out, kind of tanking it for the team. Or you see a wrecking ball just off in the distance, not anywhere near the checkpoint or anything, anywhere that he needs to be. And so that gets annoying and it gets frustrating too, because like I'm literally putting in the effort here and I don't want to have to be the only person on the communication channel barking out orders. I mean, I can, and I have done it. But it's so much easier for me and the gameplay is so much better when everyone is communicating. Yes, I have gotten instances where I was playing with a team and one of their teammates is Arissa, and she's like, okay, you guys, someone make sure you get my back because they have a Reaper. And then this guy's like, are you a gamer girl? And there is a 5-second moment of silence after the word gamer girl is said that we're just all wondering, how sexist is it about to get right now? Because no one says gamer girl unless they're going to follow it up with something sexist, right?
Right.
And this guy ended up just asking her to send him a bottle of her piss. So you have moments like that. But then you have other moments where, like, I was playing with obviously a team of gay guys. Like, they were as loud and as flamboyant as, Neil Patrick Harris on ecstasy. And we were having the time of our lives. We ended up staying as a group for about 4 or 5 matches, winning because everyone was talking and everyone was having fun.
It's funny as well because usually when a game starts to drop off, the problem is finding players.
Mm-hmm.
But there's no problem finding players.
No.
They just don't seem to give a shit about playing.
Yeah.
They're still there. They're just kind of on autopilot. And it's really hard not to get sucked down with them when you're like kind of, you come up with setups and you're doing clever stuff, or you're like a Reinhardt and you've got your shield up and you're like, everyone behind me, and everyone just kind of runs off in front of you and gets immediately annihilated. And you're just like, oh, what am I doing?
It's especially annoying when you're playing against a team that is communicating well, because they have the Orisa, they have the Bastion, and they have the Mercy, and they just have that power trio right there gunning you down, and no one's switching their players on your team to tackle that. So it's just that's just absolutely fucking frustrates me to no end, and it makes me give up the game for a day. Like if I ever get into one of those situations that we're just being mowed down and no one is talking to anyone else, I'll go play something else because it just upsets me too much.
But despite everything I've said has been pretty negative about this recent time I've had with the game, I still really like the game. I still like the characters. I still like the worlds and the art, and I'm interested in the skins that they come up with and stuff like that. I've still gone 3 years and I've not spent a single real life dollar on a loot box. In fact, I didn't even buy the game. I won the game, so I didn't even pay for the original game. I won it in a tournament. So Overwatch has given me 3 years of entertainment and has cost me £0. So I kind of try to remember the good times, and maybe they'll pull it back, or maybe they need to kind of let it slowly kind of quieten down, and then Overwatch 2, I don't know. Who knows? Who fucking knows?
For my parts this week, the main game that I played and my review went up last week for it was Crystal Crisis. This is the new Nicalis produced and actually developed as well crossover puzzle game that features a bunch of Nicalis. I don't even know if I'm saying that right. Is it Nicalis or Nicholas? I don't know.
I thought it was Nicalis. So.
Okay. Nicalis characters, you have Binding of Isaac, you have Quote and Curly Brace, et cetera, and it crosses them over with characters like Blackjack and Astro Boy, president and I should have written down his name, but it's Temper of the Dead, the president. I think President Thompson from that, and also a Michael Jackson Thriller Dancing Zombie, which I absolutely love. And this is basically just Nicalis' version of Puzzle Fighter. I mean, it's the same puzzle formula. You're dropping down the crystals or the blocks 2 by 2, chaining together colors, and then you drop these crystals that break everything that you use to attack your opponents, and you're trying to chain together big attacks. It's a really fun game. It's a really great use and evolution of the Puzzle Fighter formula. They have a couple of interesting concepts with attacks and grid wrap that actually, I think, improve the gameplay and make it better than what Capcom has given us. And I talked about all that in my review. And the only thing I kind of want to bring up right now is the story mode. Because it's really slight. It's small, it's short. I think it's only 10 matches. And the big draw of it is that you can pick a side for each match. So the matches are set in stone on who is going to fight, and you just pick a side. And depending on what side you pick, the story will play out slightly different. Not much different at all. There's just slight differences in it. And I had this problem with Blade Strangers as well, which is another Nicalis produced crossover fighting game that came out last year. And Chris, you reviewed that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And now I like Blade Strangers better than more than I like Crystal Crisis, but that's just because I like fighting games that are really easy and I don't have to learn any inputs for. But the problem I have with both titles is that neither of them really make the effort to justify the crossover. Like I get the idea of a crossover just from the general appeal of it. Going back to the original Super Smash Brothers, that's a fucking amazing game. They didn't really have to do anything to justify it, or they really didn't do anything to justify it other than here are Nintendo characters fighting each other, and they're also toys because this is what you do with your toys as a kid. And that was really all the justification that you needed. The story justification in Crystal Crisis is that there's just this red crystal and they're all trying to get control of it before it falls into the wrong hands. There's really no setup. There's no explanation of who any of these characters are if you don't know who they are. And I'm not asking for like subspace emissary level of storytelling and single player campaign, but my one want from this game is that they would have put more effort into this storyline. I mean, because if you're going to bring on Peter Cullen, the voice of Optimus Prime, to do the announcing for the story mode, then give him something interesting to say.
I do think it's cool that we're still getting these what's the term? Of course, successors to the fighting, like the gem fighter, because they always seem to come along and then not really go too far and then disappear. But there always then seems to be another one just around the corner. Yeah. And you've played quite a few of them, like in the past. What was the mobile one that you sunk into for a little bit and then?
That was just Puzzle Fighter.
That was yeah.
But that was Capcom, and that was all Capcom property or whatever ones they were able to put into it before they canceled it.
So I've seen the look of this, and it looks really pretty, and I really like the colors in it and stuff. But how do you feel it holds up against like those like previous games of its ilk?
So I think the previous games have the advantage of recognizable characters because outside of Isaac and Quote, like these are just all small Japanese or indie characters. Like there's no Shovel Knight in this game. There's nothing of that magnitude. And so in terms of characters, obviously the big Capcom IPs are gonna have it in spades. But I think in terms of gameplay, this is actually better. It's smoother. You have more options, and you can turn those options off. Like if you don't like grid wrap and you don't like the attack system, you could turn that off and just have it be like more classic puzzle fighter gameplay. But I mean, this is really just building. Its excellence is just building off of the what has been established already by Puzzle Fighter and what Capcom did. It's kind of like how Finding Dory is a great movie, but just because it builds off of what came before it in Finding Nemo, this is kind of the same thing. This is a great game, but only because the original game existed first to set it up to be so successful. All right, let's go ahead and move on from me and go to Charlotte. Charlotte, looking at you have 2 titles you've been playing this week?
realistically, it's more than that, but I'd narrowed it down to 2 because I'm still doing Phoenix Wright stuff.
Of course.
So yes, that will be going on for. I just bought the Miles Edgeworth game, so I'll definitely be playing Phoenix Wright well into the summer.
Nice.
So Fury is preparing for my other podcast. Without saying too much, really getting on my nerves. It's like one of, I don't know if you can call it bullet hell really, but it's that kind of game, and I'm just not very good at those games. So it's taking me forever. I'm like doing one fight, stopping, coming back to it another day because I just can't do those games. It's less of a comment on the game itself and more on me as an unskilled gamer.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but I've been diving back into Fractured Butthole. I started playing that over Christmas and then just stopped. So I've returned to that. And I'm not super far into it yet, but I'm having just as good a time as I did with Stick of Truth, and I absolutely loved that game.
Mm-hmm.
I really like Stick of Truth because my experience with grid-based RPGs has not been super great. I get frustrated with them very easily. For example, Disgaea, I want to love that game, but I have real problems getting into it. First Persona is grid-based, and that kind of puts me off playing that. So it's really basic fun with a grid-based RPG. So, and it's dumb, but it's funny while it's being dumb. So what more can you want? And also, like playing as David Hasselhoff is great.
Stick of Truth is one of my favorite RPGs ever. And I was shocked that I was going to like it that much because I didn't have high hopes. I had already signed off on watching South Park at this point, but going and playing that actually made me want to go back and start watching it again because it's so funny, and the fact that they squeeze that much adventure out of just a single town is just great. It's a fantastically put together game. But I haven't even bothered trying Fractured Butthole, and I have it on my shelf waiting to be played. And I'm just like, do you think Fractured Butthole is at least somewhat as good as A Stick of Truth so far?
Yeah, I think it's shaping up to be just as good, if not better.
Mm-hmm.
Can you remember if Stick of Truth had crafting elements in it? Because I feel like it didn't really have crafting as such.
I don't remember any crafting. No,
I don't think it did. I think that was one of the things they added.
I've just met Morgan Freeman in his taco shop, and there you can do a lot of food crafting, which is great. So I think anything with crafting is great by me. So that's going to make it even better. I don't know. Maybe the humor's wearing on me a little bit. I mean, I laughed once when, spoiler alert, that your character's backstory is that they are traumatized by seeing their dad fuck their mum, which is like funny once. But then when it's like Cartman keeps saying, "Yeah, your dad fucked your mum," I'm like, "Ha ha, very funny." I don't know. Maybe I go through waves, like peaks and troughs with South Park as to whether I find it really funny or not.
Yeah,
that's okay. That's okay because so does South Park.
True.
Oh. All right, Occams, you're on Final Fantasy XIV. Has the new expansion come out yet?
No, the June 28th.
June 28th, okay.
Gearing up for it. So the way this works is that I guess every 2 years, 3 years they release a new one, and I play the new expansion, and for about a month and some change after the expansion comes out, I'm really into it. I play it. I get through all the story missions. I do everything that's out at the time. And then you get into the grind of like the high end dungeons and stuff. And I don't do any of that because I don't have like a guild, and you have to be on Discord and like coordinate with people. And I'm not doing any of that. So, and then I stop playing, and then I don't play until the next expansion comes out. Then about a month before it comes out, I get back on, start playing. So this is my cycle. And y'all have all seen Train Spotting, right?
Yeah. Well, I have.
You know the scene where he kind of takes the hot shot and starts sinking into the carpet and like sinking way down into the carpet.
Right.
That's kind of where I am with it. It just sort of, it's such a pleasant, comforting place to be. Just such a well-crafted, massive multiplayer online role-playing game. And it's so much fun.
So Final Fantasy XIV is like a poorly mixed heroin overdose.
Yeah. Or just the comfort of succumbing to an opiate addiction. Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
You are listening to Podtoid.
All right, so that is it for games, but we have some headlines to cover. It is time for the news. And there is a lot to talk about this week, and unfortunately, we don't have time to cover it all. Just a few of the stories from over the past 7 days. The Pokemon Company announced Pokemon Sleep and the Pokemon Go++. We got our first look at the next Call of Duty game. Cuphead is coming to Tesla. Ghostface is coming to Dead by Daylight, and Ion Maiden developer 3D Realms is getting sued by the holding company for the rock band Iron Maiden, which they probably should have seen coming.
I'm not sure about that. Like, okay, it's kind of got a metal aesthetic and it's got a similar name. It's,
First off, if someone who never played a video game in their life listened to that last sentence you just said, they'd be so confused. So many random words. And for the Iron Maiden, I get it. It's shitty, but like, especially if it's a holding company, so that's a whole nother level of like entrenched corporatization, blah blah. It's a business, and that's fine. But it's a brand and it's a business, and if they feel that there's a reasonable assumption that someone could confuse it, which I have too, Iron Maiden, I do that all the time in my head. Is it damaging the brand? That's something for the courts to figure out. But I can understand why they would sue. Doesn't mean I agree with it, but that's how these things work.
I mean, it's clearly meant to be a homage. Like this is because they love Iron Maiden that they named it Ion Maiden. And it reminds me of Apple Computer and Apple Records. Steve Jobs named Apple Computers after Apple Records, which was the Beatles record company, because he loved the Beatles. And what did the Beatles do? I think it was in the 70s or 80s. They sued him for infringing on their copyright.
Sure.
Yeah. That's what it immediately reminded me of.
Yeah, and that makes sense. I mean, because you can I love this thing, and it's nice this is my homage to it. But, okay, that's cool. We appreciate the love, but like on the business side of it, that's not going to work.
Yeah.
To be fair, she is an Ion Maiden. It's like, that's the pun, isn't it? Like,
yes.
The lead's a female character, and she uses like nuclear weapons. So I hear you. Like, I hear you, and I understand also it's the holding company thing. I don't know. I'm kind of just. I take photographs and don't put watermarks on them. I'm just one of these people like just fucking, spread the love. I don't know.
Plus, Bruce Dickinson is a Tory, so
I didn't even consider that.
Oh shit! Like Tory spelling?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly what I meant.
So like in any other week, we would be covering all of that as our top stories. But with E3 just over a week away, we got bigger fish to fry. And so we're going to start off the news segment with Mortal Kombat 11. NetherRealm Studio pulled back the curtain most of the way on its combat pack for MK11. We already knew that Shang Tsung would be the first DLC character. And this week, the developer posted his reveal trailer to YouTube. He looks predictably like a badass. And while I love the cameo that he has in his finisher in the trailer, it kind of does feel like a poor man's version of Devora's bug person finisher.
Obviously, for his finisher, I watched it. It was all right. I did like the little cameo bit. I was kind of hoping one of my favorite finishers from the old Mortal Kombat games, probably because it was really easy to pull off too, was he would just suck your soul out, and it was like he was holding like a desiccated husk at the end. I would love to see them, since they have all these fancy we can tear a body in half and pull your eyes out stuff. I would love to see what they could do with just pulling a soul out, but making it look really, really painful and kind of horrific. That would be fun.
Well, maybe that's his other one, because I think everyone in the game has 2 finishers.
Yeah.
Anyways, at the end of the trailer, we got confirmation of 3 more fighters who are coming in the combat pack. Nightwolf is coming back. Spawn, who has been rumored for months, is making the cut. And there's some third character nobody cares about on the show, right, Chris?
Oh, how dare you! Like, they like I always thought this was coming. Like anyway, because there was such a fuss over. A lot of people were like calling for Sindel to be in like the last game, and she wasn't. And she's kind of overdue a reappearance. And then like this leak happened, and it proved so like kind of watertight. Anyway, this Switch data mining leak.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty sure that most of these characters that people think are coming have been too snugly predicted. They've got it all right so far. So I think some of these other guests that are on the horizon, these ideas like we're going to get the Terminator for some fucking crazy reason. Like I'm sure they'll make it fit, but and Bruce Campbell as Ash from Evil Dead, who's denied that he's going to be in it, but also like Kari Hiroyuki Tagawa denied that he was going to play Shang Tsung, and there he is in the game. So we'll see.
And Bruce Campbell also like tweeted something about like I should play this game.
Yeah. Yesterday, I think he was like, "Oh, this looks pretty swell."
Yeah, which I mean, it could just be him fucking with people, which is fine. But I thought it was a nice little moment.
I mean, at the end of the trailer, there is the little. I guess what
little buzzsaw or something.
There's a little chainsaw soundbite and something else that I guess is supposed to be previews of the last two characters that they didn't announce. And that could be, it could be another character. It could be a completely different character with a chainsaw. They could be bringing back Leatherface for some fucking reason. Who knows? Or, and as you guys have already pointed out, Bruce Campbell's just lying. Like, that seems to be the most obvious choice to me. That it's going to be Ash Williams, and he's just lying.
But I just think that's the case. I think it's cool of them to be like, you don't know, and we're covering it up. I mean, it's cool, but it's like everything that's come out about Mortal Kombat 11 since it was announced, where it was like, this is what we've heard is going down with the cast, or where everything's been right, every single thing. They've not got any of these leaks wrong, essentially. But I'm kind of high as a kite because Sindel's coming back. So it's weird because I take characters that I play in fighting games pretty seriously. One of the first things I ever wrote on Destructoid, just as a blog, was about like the characters I like in fighting games and like the attachment you get to them. Mm-hmm. And what I basically mean by that is it's not so much like a fanboy thing or anything, but like I was playing as Sindel in arcades in 1995. There's going to be people listening to this podcast who weren't alive in 1995. So these characters, as they follow you through your life, even though they're kind of fictional, they become something that you almost check in on every few years. Do you know what I mean? It's like you played with a character in 95, and then they came back and you played with them in 98, and now it's like it's going to be like mid-2019, and I'm still going to be playing as that character. And I really like that connection.
They should get NetherRealm to do a commercial with you where how ever seen the cotton commercials where it shows like generations of this one family like and how they've used cotton in their life. It's like cotton shirts or a nice blanket to comfort somebody but just have you playing Sindel throughout these portions of your life.
Yeah, and you can watch like my hair thin and my belly get fatter. But no, it was like I was sat and I was just waiting for this moment. And then it turned up, and I was just like, come on. And then a name turned up, and I was just like, yes, Queen!
That is the most heterosexual uttering of Yas Queen ever, what you just did right now.
That's good. But I'm pretty stoked about it. There's they've done some lore retconning, which some people are complaining about, and there are still fans banging on about, this is one of the worst things, but there are still fans banging on about but what if they put too many clothes on her?
Oh, good God.
Which is like, that's like the oldest complaint about the franchise since Mortal Kombat X, and people are still banging on about it. Like, if you kind of hang around like the communities, I don't mean all of the fans, but there are so many people who are just like, I'm not buying the DLC if she's like wearing a long dress.
The people who make those complaints are the same people who in Overwatch ask female players for a bottle of their piss. Like that's the clientele you're dealing with right there.
But So yeah, I'm pretty stoked. But as I said to a friend of mine, they were like, "Oh, you must be quite pleased." And I was like, "The only downside is because I'm committed to characters in fighting games who I play as.
Mhm.
I've kind of locked myself into playing the game for another 2 fucking years now."
Yeah.
Which is like, do you know what I mean? It's like, it's kind of like, do I really want to like? I'd said in like on the site the other week that I was actually retiring from going to tournaments and going to like meets and stuff like that, and now it's like, I guess I got to start going to them again, like, mixing with people and catching the flu all the fucking time, right? But it's cool news. Obviously, all of this is completely washing over the fact that it's like DLC, and that's kind of scuzzy. In its, but
but how long have they been doing this now? It's nothing new. I mean,
yeah, it's still kind of it's still essentially a shitty practice, and they know what they're doing as well, because it's like none of those guest characters ever. The guest characters have been proven the best-selling characters in the past, and none of those characters ever like come with the game, do they? It's always like, and then afterwards, and people have asked for Spawn since the old fucking Mortal Kombat.
Why?
Like, I don't know. But all I know of Spawn is that movie, from '96, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all I really know of Spawn. But they've been asking for that character since like Mortal Kombat fucking 5 or whatever.
These are the same people that should be asking for like hepatitis shots. They're not. It's
Well,
Spawn.
Spawn's set to make a huge comeback because he supposedly has like either a new HBO series or a movie coming out that's quote going to be a hard R. So
I feel like in some weird way, like Spawn's going to become the next Pepe Frog. I feel like it's going to happen.
If the guy who was Spawn wasn't black, I could see that happening.
Oh, they
have announced. Sorry, they have announced that Keith David is coming to voice Spawn, which is in the game, which is cool. But obviously, for people of a certain age, when you think of Keith David, you just think of two things: you think of The Thing, or you think of him fighting Roddy Piper in an alleyway for like 7 minutes straight in Vegas.
I think of him getting the chick from Labyrinth to suck his dick.
Okay,
is that in Labyrinth, or is that just something you saw?
No, it's in Ass to Ass.
Oh,
heroin movie.
Requiem for a Dream.
Yeah. He was the drug dealer. Only game in town with heroin.
I should know that. That's my third favorite movie of all time.
And Hubert Selby Jr. was the laughing prison guard when Marlon Wayans was throwing up.
Yeah. God, I need to watch that movie again and become depressed.
It's a good book too.
Moving on.
Remembering all that is just, well, I was going to say, yeah, you're good to move on because like remembering that movie is just kind of, I've just gone from like 100 to 0. You know what I mean? Like this is probably the highest I've ever been on the show.
Oh, it's great. Yeah. That movie had a crying Wayans brothers. My favorite fucking movie ever.
All right, moving on. Our second story of the week comes from Sony. As we all know, Sony is not going to be at E3 this year, and when that announcement was made, a lot of people, myself included, thought it meant the remaining known titles from Sony, such as The Last of Us 2 and Death Stranding, were being pushed to the PlayStation 5. That is not the case, as we learned this week with a brand new 9-minute-long trailer for Kojima Productions' Death Stranding. Though it didn't make a whole lot of sense in terms of story, it was our best look at how the game would play, and we won't have to wait long to play it as it is launching on November 8th. The official website for the game put up some information about features in the title, including asynchronous multiplayer a la Dark Souls, and the fact there is no game over in the game. When you die in the living world, you're taken to a different realm and have to find your way back to where you were. It's an interesting concept, and Charlotte, I know you are very excited for this game, and I just want to get your thoughts on the trailer.
Yeah, it's batshit crazy, but I love it anyway. I'm really looking forward to it. I don't get where this sentiment is coming from that so many people on my social media at least were like, I don't care about Death Stranding. I'm like, that doesn't make you cool. Like, it doesn't make you cool to just be like, I don't care about this game that's coming out and like kill other people's fun. I don't know. I found that kind of sad that so many people were just like, say like acting as if it was like hip, whatever the word the kids use is, just to act as if they're not interested in Death Stranding. But I'm excited. I think Kojima is full of shit. And I think it's a lot of it's not going to make any sense, and a lot of it's not going to be very well done. But I play so many games that are just very boring that having something that's so over the top is going to be great.
And it's got babies in jars, which is Occam's like one of your
Dude.
things, right?
That fucking the collector's edition. I'm not gonna buy it because I don't care. I'll gamefly the hell out of this and be in the boat with Charlotte and be like, I don't know what's fucking going on, but this is fun as shit. This is weird. But that collector's edition has a baby in a jar and it lights up. I think it lights up. I hope it lights up. And I'm gonna go in the aftermarket like in a couple years and grab one for $20. I'm gonna be so happy.
Charlotte, when you say Kojima's full of shit, I just want to like press you on that in terms of what do you mean? You mean you think his deepness is kind of just really fucking with the audience, or? I
think like it brings me back to his explanation as to why Quiet in Metal Gear Solid 5 has no clothes on.
Right.
Yep.
And is that character, sorry, because I've only seen the trailer, is that character, because I read it as Die Hard Man, like D Bart D, but is it actually Die Hard Man?
I thought it was Die Hard Man.
I don't know what it is. I was also, but when I just saw it in my head, I was like, D Hard Man, and it just made me think of Sideshow Bob with his fucking D Bart D.
No, I don't know, but I just want to reiterate, it's totally okay. I'm not criticizing people who don't want to play Death Stranding. I'm criticizing people who make a big deal about not wanting to play Death Stranding. I don't know why, like, and I think that's a separate thing from criticizing Kojima. Like, I don't think he can write female characters for shit. So I'm a bit nervous about the fact it has actually quite a few female characters in this game, and they all have really dumb names. But I don't know. If you start criticizing, saying like you're not going to play his games for things like being shit at writing female characters, then you'd have to not play a lot of games. So
I've seen a lot of people giving Death Stranding shit for people are saying that it's weird and unique, and everyone's like going, oh, but it's just a shooter. And it's like, yeah, well, unfortunately games do always have some element of just a standard game in them. It still has a weird and a unique aesthetic. Even if it does have like shooter mechanics or whatever.
Wouldn't that just be like Shadow of the Colossus, just a boss run?
Right. That's
exactly. Yeah. It looks like it's also got like Postman simulator vibes to it. At least if they're sticking with some of the stuff that was shown in the earlier trailer, like just carrying like dead bodies around in your backpack. And I think I saw a couple of people on social media who were like, yeah, if there's a lot of delivery, just delivering shit, then more, all power to it. I want to play that game.
No, just, end of the day, I mean, dude makes some weird ass games, and they don't always, the dots don't always all connect. But I've never played. I've never forgotten any of his games I've ever played, and I've forgotten a lot of games.
I will say this last trailer, to the point you guys have made, really showed off the most conventional game aspects of it, because up to this point it's mostly been kind of story cutscenes and trying to piece together what's going on in this world, and then most of the gameplay that we saw was just Norman Reedus walking around expansive locations. And I think this is the first time that we actually saw, okay, this is what type of game it's going to be. And in terms to Charlotte, to your comment about delivering items, one of the other mentions on the official website is that you have to keep track of your inventory, and so I think weight on the shit that you're carrying in your backpack will play a part into how fast you can traverse, and people trying to rob you and steal your shit. So
I haven't looked too deeply into this, but I did come across somebody saying that you were talking. Obviously, you're talking about the delivery aspect of the game, that the markings on Reedus' character's suit are like the same as the US Postal Service in terms of like the colors that are used and the order that the colors are on his outfit.
I did not even see. I didn't notice that. I'll have to look into that.
So that's just me. I heard from a guy who heard from a guy kind of thing. But it might be they were like, oh, if you look at the vans of the US Postal Service, they have the same colors printed on the side in the same order as he has on like his badge on his outfit.
All right, so Sony won't be going to E3, but everyone else is basically showing up. This week, we got a lot of confirmations of the games that will be there. According to Go Nintendo, GameStop has 21 unlabeled new SKUs for Switch, none of which are for a new console. And then Microsoft said that it will have 14 first-party games at the show, one of which we know will be Gears of War 5. Ubisoft revealed it is showing a bunch of Tom Clancy titles, including some new stuff for Siege. Larian Studios, which previously said it wasn't working on Baldur's Gate, may be showing off Baldur's Gate at E3. We may be getting our first look at a new Darksiders game at the show. Cyberpunk 2077 will be there, once again in a hands-off demo. And just because it's one of my appointments for next week, I want to give a shout out to Natsumi, who are going to bring a new entry into the Real Fishing series to the show, as well as something called Harvest Moon Mad Dash, which is a spin-off of the Harvest Moon series. I don't talk about this at all, but one of my favorite puzzle games is Harvest Moon Frantic Farming for the Nintendo DS, and I'd love to see that puzzle formula return. Not sure if that's what Mad Dash is going to be. For all we know, it could be a terrible, mobile title, but I guess I'll find out next week, next week. Jesus Christ, it's getting close. There's so much coming to E3, and on Sunday, we posted a staff wish list of the games we'd like to see revealed, but I just want to know from all of you, and Occam's, we'll start with you, what games that are going to be shown off are you most excited to see?
God, I don't even know what's going to be shown off.
I just named him.
Yeah, I know. I just none of those really interest me. Yeah, I'm a Sony guy. So I'm kind of, it's Last of Us 2, stuff like that. The Metal Gear Stranding things. I guess I'll be curious to see what a new Gears is like, because I really liked that series when it came out, like on 360. Like that was like the game, They kind of, for me and my group of friends, it replaced Halo for a minute. Yeah. And they got Andy Dixon and I just holding out our chainsaw guns like they're our cocks. That was so much fun. So that I hope that Gears can kind of make a comeback a little bit, maybe get away from the dude bro, and just for fucking sake, don't use a shitty cover of Mad World in your trailer just ever. No one needs to do that. But other than that, I think part of it is I'm going into this sort of, I don't want to know a lot. I kind of want to be surprised and excited, and instead of me like going like, oh, well, so, Microsoft doesn't have the games, blah, blah, blah. I want to kind of like, I want to cheer for them. I want to be happy for them. So I hear all these unknown titles. I want to feel like a kid again and be surprised.
Yeah. Chris, I know which one you're looking forward to.
Yeah, honestly, there's not really a lot that I'm looking forward to. I'm more just concentrating on like the work that needs doing. But I'm really hoping to see Shantae 5. Mm-hmm. It's a game I'm really excited for. I love those games. Shantae and the Pirate's Curse might be in my like top 5 of all time, possibly. I think it's a fucking masterpiece. And Half Genie Hero's very good as well, but I think it's kind of a step down. Yeah. And I'm just loving to see what they do with this new game, and it's coming pretty soon. It's coming by the end of the year, so I'm hoping that they've had the time. Now they've had a few runs at it, and they're not relying so much on crowdfunding anymore. It'd be great if they really like popped out a masterpiece, and it had some cool voice acting and all of it. So I'm looking forward to that, and I'm still looking forward to just seeing anything more of Indivisible, which I feel like I've been talking about for like 3 or 4 straight years now.
Dude, I still play that demo that they put out. That was so cool. And yeah, there's just haven't heard shit about it.
It's definitely on the way because it was at Rezzed and stuff like that. But it's a little late. But in terms of the big hitters, honestly, I'm really not that bothered about a lot that's going to get shown. It's just not. It's the stuff that's on the agenda is just not really my jam, essentially. Mm-hmm. But I do look forward to E3 because I like seeing other people being excited. I like seeing other people like lose their shit over reveals, and it goes back to what Charlotte was saying about like Death Stranding isn't a game I'm particularly looking forward to. I don't have any problem with it, but it's just not. But I'm also not fucking running around telling anybody, like apart from everyone who's listening to this show. I'm not running around going on Twitter, I just want to point out that I'm not looking forward to this game. And so I'm happy to see other people happy. And I'm really happy that there's less press conferences and I don't have to sit and do those as many of those stressful like live news type ups, which sometimes put my anxiety on like a pretty high shelf.
I had last year, I had to write up for, this was during the PlayStation 1, the Destiny 2 expansion pack release, and I knew nothing about Destiny 2, so I made sure everyone who was reading my story knew I knew nothing about Destiny 2. So yeah, no, I agree with you. I kind of hate doing those just because there is the chance that I'll end up having to cover Destiny 2 or insert other game I don't play here. So
me and Chris did the PC show, and it was at the end of like the night. There'd been a couple of the big ones, and me and Chris Carter, we were like, oh, we'll just do the PC show. And then they decided to make it this show where every 30 seconds they showed a new game. Like literally, they were pumping out trailers, and some of them was stuff that wasn't even new. So it was like trying to process just between two of us what was new and get out. But we did it because we're great. And but it was also worth sticking around because they had that fucking giant duck that he was giving out cakes.
That's right, the Drake's Ducks. Drake's Cakes.
Yeah. Webster, that's his name. I fucking remember. I care. Webster. So yeah, I, with E3, I more just look forward to everybody else being happy and excited and what they're looking forward to, and I'm just quite happy to sit here twiddling my thumbs, waiting for Way Forward to like show me some Shantae footage.
All of the stuff you said's not all that interesting to me, but if Ubisoft have any more news on Beyond Good and Evil 2, that would be quite nice.
I would like to see that. I'd also like to see, I cannot imagine we're not going to get at least one new DLC character for Smash Brothers announced. It's probably going to be the Dragon Quest hero. And so, as of stuff that I know is coming, I just want confirmation of that because I love Dragon Quest and I would love to see it represented in Smash. Our final story, we can't really let this news segment go without talking about a little bit of Ghostbusters. This week it was revealed Ghostbusters, the video game, which is essentially a sequel to Ghostbusters 2, will be ported later this year to PlayStation 4, Xbox One, Switch, and PC. It is being remastered by Saber Interactive, who recently surprised most people with a fairly decent World War Z game. Occams, I know you are a much bigger Ghostbusters fan than I. How happy are you that this is getting ported over to current generation consoles?
Hey, I'm thrilled. I fucking love that game so much. It was like you're playing a movie. You get to hang out with the Ghostbusters, and I loved. One of my favorite things to do was you shoot your proton stream thing out, and I would just destroy furniture. So much furniture. I think I probably added another 40% to my playtime of just I was like, what's this? This is a shelf full of old glassware, and just it was so much fun. So I'm thrilled. I'm thrilled that like whenever they do these remasters, remakes, whatever, I love the idea of a new generation getting to play it. That makes me really happy, and I'm really happy to be able to go back to it and play it myself. So yeah, I'm very, very excited. Very surprised too. I
saw a tweet just before we recorded from old Destructoid alumni Jim Sterling, where he was saying, what if they just released the game and everyone booted it up, but they'd replaced the Ghostbusters with the female Ghostbusters team just to watch the world burn?
That'd be amazing.
You are listening to Podtoid.
All right, it is time now for the Podtoid question of the week.
I mean, where are my kids supposed to play? The rock quarry? There's rocks in there.
I'm sorry, that is not the Podtoid question of the week. It is the first of the month, which means that we are taking questions from the Destructoid community. It is time for the goddamn mail.
Here's the mail, it never fails. It makes me want to wag my tail. When it comes, I want to wail.
Goddamn mail.
I love that. I fucking love that. So every time. Sorry.
These are questions that were asked by the community. We put this post up on Saturday, and I've chosen just a handful of them because we don't have all the time in the world. So first up, Goofy or Brute wants to know, what is our favorite safe word?
Brexit. Nothing kills a party faster than Brexit.
Is that like the code to pull out?
Here is mine, and by the way, this is just a reference humor, so 10 points to anyone who gets it.
Jean-George Pepper.
Occams, you have one?
Crab apple.
Charlotte?
I feel like this is going to get used against me, so I want to stay silent.
Okay, that's probably for the best. Moving on, Zalno wants to know, let's say you were put in charge of E3 this year. Which company would you rather see give an E3 presentation?
I want Soldier Boy's video game. Did he even make it a limited liability company, or was he just selling prototype, like put together cardboard boxes out of his garden shed or something? But he should be at E3.
No, okay. If Soldier Boy does an E3 press conference, but it's in the parking lot of a strip mall with a Dominican hair salon, and he's got like a bunch of food trucks set up. Oh my God, that'd be amazing.
I'd go to that for the food trucks.
I would too. I'd go there for Dominican hair salon. If I had to pick one. But real quick, safe words, right? What do deaf people do? Like, do they like tap them on the shoulder and then you like sign real quick? Or like you like maybe they like throw a tennis ball at the wall to get there. I'm assuming they're like fucking doggy style. So maybe it's just like they throw a tennis ball at the wall. Or like when those light up balls.
Oh my God, we need to find some deaf people and ask.
I'm really curious. And my answer, by the way, is Konami, under the assumption that they finally reveal Silent Hills.
Yeah, that's never going to happen.
I know. Well, this is this guy. I could say a Shadow.
This is why
Hearts.
we dream, CJ.
Yeah. Here's a deep one, and unfortunately I wrote down the name wrong of whoever left it, or my computer just auto corrected it to an actual word. So sorry if I don't have your name, but. Given the evolving nature of games as a service, is the concept of a one-time review score still applicable, or should scoring be a variable, aka reevaluated after 3 to 6 months, to account for either positive improvements to the core game later, or the negative practice of adding predatory microtransactions after initial release?
I don't know. Are they going to charge less at the start and then charge more when they think the game's in a place where it can be rated higher, or?
I mean,
at the end of the day, a review is, should you go out and spend your money on this?
Yeah.
And
you're reviewing the product as it is then.
Right.
And I know plenty of folks who do like a update, or 6 months later, state of the game a year later, and they don't give it a score, but they talk about it.
We did that with No Man's Sky when they had their giant content update. We reviewed it again, and I know we review individual expansion packs for MMOs as their own individual entities and give them scores. What you don't want to see is something like with SimCity, where you had, what was it, like IGN or Polygon that was reviewing it every 2 days and adjusting the score again and again to where it's meaningless now. I mean, we Destructoid ended up waiting to do like maybe a week and a half to actually review and give it a score just because of that bullshit.
Yeah, I don't think a game should get points for making it better in the future. That they should just do that. It's you review what you have then and there.
Yeah.
I know that sometimes, say with fighting games, if the online isn't up and running, sometimes people are good to hold off until that because it's such an integral part. But you can't start reviewing things based on possibilities. You can't start saying like, well, we'll give this a 5 now, but check back with us in 2 weeks because it might be an 8, depending on what they do with it and depending on how long it takes them to get around to doing this. And it's not because obviously the question asked about games as a service, so it's games that specifically are ongoing. Rainbow Six Siege is a game that vastly improved after like a good year or 2 years. I think it was just a single year. That vastly improved as a game, and now I think it's one of the best shooters that's ever come out. But that's where it becomes, well, you've had your chance and now it's word of mouth that has to get out there. It's word of mouth between players or between maybe articles or videos you see or blogs or whatever. But if people are putting out a product and saying, this is out on Friday and it costs $60, you can only tell people this is what on Friday your $60 will get you.
Yeah, and then you have this seems like the most obvious reason of not to do it: manpower. There's not an indispensable amount of of reviewers who work for gaming websites who have unlimited time to continuously play games after that initial review to see how they improve. Obviously there are games that we enjoy personally that we will touch upon with individual articles and talking about how they improve, but those are really just titles that we enjoy, that we personally like Warframe. That's another example of like Siege, a game that vastly improved as time went on. And we'll talk about it from now and then. We'll talk about how fun it's become. But I mean, if everything is going to games as a service, it really would put so much pressure on all reviewers if we were to have to continuously review these games as a service as they improve or get worse with time.
And the other thing, of course, to this is at the end of the day, and this isn't a cop-out, and it's almost let this statement be stricken from the record, you know what I mean? But the media or the critics or the journalists or whatever you want to call them, they didn't choose to change the industry. The industry chose to change the industry. It was games that decided, actually, instead of just releasing this finished product, we're going to start doing it this way, whether it's fixes or giving you more content down the line. And I'm not saying that in time the media can adapt to that, but at the end of the day, it wasn't like everyone got together and said, let's start doing it this way. The industry decided it was going to be this way.
The next question from Mulan. They want to know, why does country music suck so much?
White people.
It's because it's all stadium country now, and stadium country is garbage. When I was driving out to Bishop the other day, of course, the only radio station I could get was either a Christian radio station or a country radio station. And first of all, 10 songs in a row, they was just dudes. Like, there were no female artists for at least 45 minutes of music, which seems weird because I know there are a lot of female country stars. But it was just the most garbage lyrics. Oh, babe, I love you like I love my truck. I mean, it's just just this bullshit. I mean, Bo Burnham did it best with his song about country pandering. There's no argument that's going to be made better than that. And it's just, that is what mainstream country music is it's just pandering to dummies.
White people.
Yeah.
Yeah, but CJ, as a man who's about to move out of the big city, you might find yourself developing a new liking for it.
Actually, there is a classic rock station located in Bishop, and that is going to be the only thing on my dial.
Okay.
I will listen to classic rock.
Kudos to you, CJ, for still listening to the radio, by the way.
Well, I have an old car, and I don't want to buy a new stereo for it.
Fair enough.
I'm literally down to the point where only one of my speakers work, and I don't care enough to fix it.
Oh, bless your heart. I remember when I had that car. That's fun. You kind of get fearless. You're like, yeah, I'd hit somebody with this thing if I had to. It's okay.
From May Cause Cancer, will there be a successor to the 3DS, or is it just all about the Switch now? I think it's pretty obvious it's just going to be the Switch from here on forward. There's no reason for them to make a lower entry model portable only system when you have the Switch.
I have to ask Charlotte, do you have an opinion on country music?
I mean, Dolly Parton's pretty good, but apart from that,
that's the perfect answer. I was thinking, because you're from the UK and you live in Germany, and I was like, what is her experience with country music at all, if at all, since it's such like an intrinsically American thing, and being an American, I only think about America, so it's I just was curious. Thank you for your answer.
I mean, I had an ex. He's probably not going to listen to this, so it's fine. Mm-hmm. But he did line dancing, and he was into Toby Keith and all of that.
You boy.
And, nah.
Oof.
Ugh.
Yep.
In case it wouldn't surprise any of you, my racist roommate also does line dancing and square dancing.
Ooh, square dancing. Ooh.
Yeah.
That's too far.
I call that a red flag.
From De Phoenix, which of the 4 elements would be best to have control of, and why is it wind? That's really easy for wind. It's because when I fart, I can just blow the smell away.
It's a good one. I'm personally a fan of water. I like the idea of just eternal oceans and burying everything in water. Eternally.
I'm going to go with heart. All those Captain Planet fans out there. And if not heart, then I'll take jealousy or pavement.
It's like what did like Hart let him like hug a koala? That was all that kid could do.
He could talk to animals.
That's
That
no,
was
he
what
couldn't.
Hart could do.
No,
He was the
just-
Aquaman of the
Just pretended.
Planeteers.
I think he was just like, oh, this koala's telling me don't cut down the trees. It's like, you don't need to talk to a koala to know that.
This koala saying you should give me $5.
Oh.
Charlotte, favorite element?
Fire.
Fire.
Yeah.
Nice.
Oh my God, we really are the Planeteers.
Right. And you can be one too.
Saving our planet is the thing to do.
Looting
Looting
and
and
polluting
it's
is
not
not the way. Here's what Captain Planet has to say.
White power.
Have a guess which person on this podcast is under 30.
I have no idea what's going on.
Oh shit.
He was an environmental superhero. It was a cartoon, and there was 5 guys. There was a team of 5 people, and they had rings, and each ring gave them a control of an element. And when they put them together, this superhero with a mullet came out of the ground, and it was all about saving the rainforests or stopping the ozone layer from melting. And Whoopi Goldberg was in charge of all of them.
And there was a villain named Duke Nukem.
Yes, yes.
Now you're pulling my leg.
There was a villain who was a businessman, and he was called Loot and Plunder.
God, I miss those days. So it just was like, it was just the dumbest shit, you know? Like, what if we name him like Bladesley or some and he has swords? Like, that's perfect.
I mean,
Gunner
that
McShooty.
That Phoenix Wright DLC I'm playing at the minute has a character called Marlon Rhymes, and he's a rapper who works in an aquarium. So
That's awesome.
Magical Flying Nazi Lolly Chain has a question about microtransactions. Given the stern and pending U.S. legislation targeting aggressive microtransactions and loot boxes, and possibly the collapse of a business model for business models in the U.S. gaming market, what would you like to see, or what do you think is most plausible to replace them in the U.S. mobile market? For me, what I would like to see them replace it is, I think Super Mario Run had the best monetization idea of where it gives you a sample. You can play through the first world. You can play through this little mode as much as you want. And then if you like it enough, you spend the $10 or $5, however much it costs now, to get the full game. I would love for more mobile games to be built that way.
I honestly don't mind the widespread of DLC as long as you're getting something substantial for your money, but at the same time, the core game is substantial enough so it's not like a big part of the main game that's been hacked off and isolated for DLC. I don't see any problem with that. Like going back to what I'm doing right now, Phoenix Wright and its DLC is just an extra case that has nothing to do with the core game, but it's a full case. It's taken me an entire week to do each one. So I'm totally fine with that being a way that games companies make their money, including in mobile games.
Hypno wants to know when he'll be invited to the club. Hey, Charlotte, how do you say never in German?
Never?
Yes.
Nie.
Nie. Nie, Hypno.
Well,
nie.
We're the motherfucking knights that say knee, bitch.
like it depends on the club, because he can join my club, but he needs to bring his own ball gag.
Solbo wants to know who would win in a fight between a grilled cheese sandwich and a taco.
Taco.
No.
Depends on the rules.
Depends on hard shell or soft shell.
Right.
It just said taco, so it's all bets are on. I mean,
Okay.
it's like,
Well, I'll go knife fight, grilled cheese sandwich, MMA rules, taco.
the taco is so much more versatile than grilled cheese are great, right? No one's they're a universal comfort food. They're wonderful, but a taco, it's versatile. A taco can be anything. Taco can be the Lady Gaga Final Fantasy games.
Oh, God.
It can reinvent itself any way it wants. A grilled cheese sandwich, you can add shit to a grilled cheese sandwich all day. It's still just a grilled cheese sandwich.
Just a grilled cheese sandwich? Oh,
In the context of the God damn it, y'all sensitive motherfuckers. In the context of this discussion, yes, just a grilled cheese sandwich.
Boxman214 is asking, other than Star Wars, what other video game franchise do you think is failing to live up to its full potential? That's actually really easy for me because the answer is
Legally Blonde 3.
yes, Legally Blonde 3. You have the Melee fighting game for the GameCube, PS2, Xbox era, and those are fun. They're dumb. They're okay. But there are no other good Godzilla games. They basically all suck. And so if there's one license that's not being used properly, it's that one.
Would you prefer a good Godzilla game or a good Dino Crisis game?
A good Godzilla game.
Yeah,
Okay.
Easily. Because, I already have Dino Crisis. It's called Resident Evil. Dinosaurs are lame compared to Resident Evil zombies. I'm done. I'm full of hot takes today, apparently, but I never understood the point of Dino Crisis or why anyone liked it. Like, just play Resident Evil. It's a better game.
I'm about 2 hours in for my other podcast into Dino Crisis, and I kind of agree with that.
Yeah. Dinosaurs are fun, but just watch Jurassic Park. Or actually, play the Genesis game. That was amazing.
Finally, last question. From Five Finger Delta, let's say you spent an entire day eating your boogers as your only calorie intake and farting as your only method of burning calories. If you farted once for every booger eaten, would you end up with a calorific surplus or deficit?
All right. Five Finger Delta, just know I can ban you. Like, I do have the ability to ban you from the site. So just keep that in mind next time you ask a question.
I've not got the question written down in front of me, but am I right? Did I hear right? And basically, it'd balance itself out.
Yeah, I feel like this is one of those what's heavier, a pound of feathers or a pound of lead questions.
You know what's funny, Charlotte? Someone did actually ask that as well for this podcast. But no, I think he said that if you only ate boogers and you farted for every booger you ate, then surely that means, am I wrong here? Am I? Who's tricking who around here?
You would have to decide if a fart is equal to burns as much calories as a booger gives you.
Okay. Well, seeing as you've got the power of wind, you're probably best qualified to figure this one out.
You would definitely end up with a caloric deficit, especially if you have just like a really big, long fart. Because that's obviously going to burn more than just a little silent squeaker. So thanks for that wonderful question, Five Finger Delta.
It's the worst question I've ever been asked in my life.
That is it for our show. But before we go, we have a community shout out.
Yes, we do. This is a shout out. It's Philkin7, the Phil from the site, a good buddy of ours. He has been working on getting some fundage for another user, guy named Admiral Akbong, a longtime user and a pretty badass guy. Admiral is trying to get back to, I think he's in New York right now, but he's somewhere, and he's trying to get to California. He's got a buddy who's sick and might not be around much longer, and he's trying real hard to raise some funds to get Admiral back to California to say goodbye, and that's just a really sweet, wonderful thing. And if you have the opportunity, it's in the Q posts. You can see I know Admiral's posted and Phil's done a couple times. If you can contribute anything, that's wonderful. If not, just a nice comment to Admiral would be real sweet as well. So just shout out to both those guys. Good folks. A lot of good folks on the site. So
awesome. Just a quick scheduling note before we sign off. Podtoid will be taking the next 2 weeks off. Next week I'm going to be at E3, and so we won't have a show then. And then the week after, I'm actually moving to my new apartment in Bishop, so no internet access there at that time. So after today, our next new episode is going to be on June 24th. Hopefully we'll have everyone back then, so please look forward to that. On behalf of Chris, Charlotte, Occams, and myself, thank you for joining us. And don't forget to subscribe to iTunes, Google Play, and Spotify. And be sure to stay tuned right after this for a Godzilla Spoilsport. Okay, are they all gone?
Yep.
Okay, cool. It's time for Spoilsport. I really need to get new theme song for this. That sucks. I hate that now.
It's good. It's like Eurotrash gay club music from the 90s. It's awesome.
It sounds like background music to an episode of Queer as Folk. Welcome to Spoilsport, the show after a show where members of the Podtoid staff discuss the latest and greatest in movies. I am CJ, and I'm joined by Occams. Occams, thank you for joining me.
My pleasure.
And we are here to talk about Godzilla, King of the Monsters. This is the third film in Legendary Pictures' MonsterVerse franchise. It is a sequel to 2014's Godzilla, directed by Gareth Edwards. He was actually set to direct this movie before he jumped ship to helm Rogue One. King of the Monsters is directed by Michael Dougherty, who is probably best known for helming the horror anthology Trick or Treat and Krampus. Have you seen either of those films?
You know, I haven't, and I really mean to.
Yeah, Trick or Treat I know is really big with horror fan aficionados. They really like the little mascot from that. Before we get talking about this movie, I want to get your thoughts on the last Godzilla movie and also Kong Skull Island, because those are the first two films in this MonsterVerse. What did you think of Gareth Edwards' 2014 Godzilla film?
It was okay. I liked his redesign of Godzilla. I liked it was thick and slow and lumbering, and he had just a real good mean face. I hated how much they just showed the people. Like, I remember watching the movie and there was like Godzilla shit happening in the background, and I was trying to like look past them because they're all fucking talking about nothing, and to watch the monster fights. I didn't care for the Mutos. I thought they were a very generic looking monster. It didn't have the character that the kaiju have had in the past. Some of his more notable, like Monster Zero, is just so iconic looking.
Yeah.
And for like a house-made kaiju, as it were, it looked very boring to me. Looked like a sub-boss in like Lost Planet from the old Xbox game. But it was an all right film. I loved the kind of brutality of how Godzilla won at the end. It was a fine movie. It just could have done with a little less people, a little more Godzilla.
Yeah.
And then I saw Kong Skull Island. I really liked that. I liked it a lot. You really felt for King Kong. He seemed, someone like, oh, these are his parents. There's some dead ass parents right there. There's these giant skeletons, and I felt bad for him. But I like that one quite a bit.
It's certainly fun. I think of all three of the movies, it's the most fun film that they've made.
Yeah.
I enjoy the 2014 Godzilla film, but what I don't like about it. It's kind of the same as what you're saying, is that it's not necessarily that I don't like that they focus a lot on the people. It's just that I don't care about any of the people they're focusing on. I really don't care about this stupid soldier who needs to be on every little plot line of this movie. I know that he's the star and it's supposed to follow him, but god damn, I did not care about him. I didn't mind the slow build up to Godzilla because that's, how they've done it in the past.
Yeah.
But as you said, the Muto, god, what boring fucking creations those were.
Yeah. I mean, it felt like someone watched Cloverfield and then just was like, let me make like a more generic version of that. It was
somehow they succeeded.
Yeah.
So Godzilla King of the Monsters takes place about 5 years after Godzilla, which, it's releasing 5 years after. And it stars Kyle Chandler as Dr. Mark Russell, an animal behavior and communication specialist who is enlisted by the monster tracking organization known as Monarch to track down his wife and daughter, both of whom have been taken by environmental terrorists who want to use her Orca machine, which is a device that allows humans to make some sort of unspecified contact with the Titans.
I love pseudoscience in movies.
There's
I love it
so much pseudoscience in this movie. Oh my God.
There were so many parts of the movie. I just went, yup.
There's
just got to run with.
There's so much. There's so much of this film you have to take with a grain of salt that it's no longer a grain of salt. It is a boulder of salt that you have to take.
Yeah, really.
So after Emma and Madison Russell, which is Mark's wife and daughter, are taken by Game of Thrones Tywin Lannister, and I'm only going to call him that in this, what follows is a globe-trotting adventure as Monarch tries to stop the terrorists from reviving all the monsters, especially Monster Zero, a.k.a. King Ghidorah.
Also, I would like to point out that Charles Dance was the bad guy in The Golden Child, which is how I will always remember him.
I don't think is that the Eddie Murphy one.
Yeah, with the knife.
Yes. Okay, I do remember that film now. I always get that one mixed up with. Shit, there was another one. The Last Emperor, and really, those could not be the further.
That's great.
That's like getting Godzilla confused with Legally Blonde 3. I mean,
yeah, it's like, wait, is that Schindler's List or Forrest Gump? Always confusing.
Okay, so let's start with the whole premise of this movie, of which is, it's just kind of a chase film where Monarch is giving chase to this terrorist organization.
My initial thoughts, so you're watching the movie and you see Charles Dance and he's all like, I'm the eco-terrorist guy, and then you find out that the mom and somehow the daughter too, which was a weird pull, are like in on it, and they're trying to like reset the earth because the radiation the Titans, I'll call Titans, the Titans put out like causes shit to grow, which I was like, yeah, sure, why not? That's fine. Yeah. But it was so silly, and like Monarch is one of the most inept organizations I've ever seen. Like it was so easy for like these like 10 dudes, 10 like Spec Ops guys and Charles Dance and Stranger Things and the mom to like run in these places, murder everybody, and just we're gonna raise them all. It just and that's one of those things. It really I was funny to me, because I was in it for the monsters. Yeah. I wasn't in it because like, what's this? This is a really engaging story. Yeah, that's fine. I did love that they included the oxygen destroyer.
Yes. Yeah. Even though it was like, that was what, 15 seconds of this movie.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
But you're absolutely right. And that's actually one of the notes I wrote down is like, does Monarch have no security systems at all? Because like you said, he has 15 guys maximum, and they're able to go and kill everyone at these sites without any sort of pushback.
And multiple sites.
Multiple sites.
Just murder I guess Monarch spent all their money on that giant like wing plane thing that they're in most of the movie. I don't know why that wasn't their base to begin with.
Yeah, and so I mean, I guess we can get down to the plot of the film, and there are really two plots going on. There's the first one, which is of Mark trying to get his wife and daughter back. Again, not knowing that his wife may have been teaming up with the environmental extremists all along, or maybe she's just convinced after they kidnap her. It's never really made clear in the movie.
Yeah, and because what's the Stranger Things was all like, hey, sending her dad an email like, hey, mom's acting weird, and she never sends it. And I was wondering like when that would come up later, but it never did because she was in on the fucking plot too.
Yeah, and I think it's a really a shame that they didn't make the wife even more evil because and we'll talk about this later, but it's partially evil people who try and get their little redemption at the end never really works well. But I think there are a few moments in this movie that kind of highlight what a crap script everyone was working with here. And it's a script that the director co-wrote. So you have the like I said, you have the two plot lines, which is the dad trying to get back his wife and daughter. And then you have the secondary plot line, which is of Monarch trying to revive all the Titans. Generally, when your heroes and your villains have the same goal, something went wrong with your script. Like, take Indiana Jones and Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, for instance. In that movie, Indy and whoever the fuck Cate Blanchett is playing, both are trying to return the glass skulls to wherever the fuck they go at the end of that film. Like, they both have the same goal. It's just we're supposed to root for one because they're, I guess, not as evil as the other one. I don't understand. It seems like it's bad writing to me when the only difference between your hero's motivation and your villain's motivation is that we're supposed to like the heroes, because generally the end result of this movie was gonna play out the same, no matter if Monarch succeeded or if these nondescript environmental terrorists succeeded.
It's one of those things to where it's none of the I didn't like any of the humans at all. I didn't care. Like, I like Thomas Middleditch as an actor, and I think he did a fine kind of like nebbish, like, guy. But like, was he supposed to be he wasn't supposed to be the humorous element. It was Bradley Whitford was kind of supposed to be like the guy who's like with the one-liners. but it just none of it worked at all.
No.
It's just so poorly done.
Uh,
And that was kind of charming to me in a way. Like, I really was enjoying watching these people. I wrote down a note: actors chewed as much scenery as the monsters.
And you also have this, and this is a really American filmmaker specific trait about making movies like this, is that you always have to have the military do shit that's heroic. And so you have a bunch of soldiers in here who really don't play any part in this movie other than to show them be heroic and do something that make you go, America, fuck yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So you have, O'Shea Jackson Jr., or Jackson O'Shea Jr. I can't remember his name. Ice Cube's kid. He's there with his one lines, and then you get the military guys, and they have like one heroic moment in Mexico, and it's just, I guess maybe I was supposed to care about them, but I didn't care about them, and I'm kind of in the same boat as you. I really didn't care about anyone, and I didn't think anyone particularly did a good job in this movie outside of maybe Kyle Chandler. I don't know.
But my thing with him, I remember I didn't realize he was a behavioral animal specialist or whatever. I wrote down wolf photographer. And then my next note was like, why is everyone listening to the wolf photographer? Like, cause he was in that high level meeting with like, where this is what we're going to do. Monarch's going to blah. And he was like, well, no, this is what we should do. And then of course, since the old Asian dude is like, listen to him. Like, everyone just did. I'm like,
half of Ken Watanabe's lines in this movie is just him saying Godzilla. Like, literally, that is all. Somebody says something and he is just Godzilla. And 90% of this movie is just world building. Whether they're in that flying fortress or at one of the monarch sites that you don't care about, it's always ancient civilizations and there's a hollow earth. By the way, the hollow earth has still not paid off since they introduced that in Kong Skull Island.
Yeah. Now, that being said, with the world building, I kind of love what they're doing with it. Like, when we go to Godzilla's like home, chilling out in his like home city that clearly used to be. I kind of thought, oh, is this Atlantis? Because
that's what I thought too. Like, that's clearly Atlantis.
Yeah. Like, I thought that's awesome that they have that. I love the idea of like civilizations that worship these things as gods, blah, blah. I also thought, it's kind of, even though they saved his life and kind of kickstarted Godzilla quicker than he would have been, they did fucking straight up blow up his house, which I felt bad for him on. Because that was a pretty sweet little pad he had going there with like the lava waterfalls and all that. No, just the idea, with the Ken Watanabe kind of sacrificing his life, but he kind of did everything like he was reading from a fortune cookie, like all his little.
He literally quoted a fortune cookie in this movie. I mean,
yeah, a very long fortune cookie. I remember that. Yeah.
It's like 3 fortune cookies, or it's one of those fortune cookies that accidentally has 3 different fortunes inside. And we'll talk about that scene a little bit later. But let's go ahead and talk about the monsters, because obviously, no one's here to see the story, and they didn't bother writing one that people might want to see. So, monsters. Was there a more impressive monster than Monster Zero, King Ghidorah?
No, just that. Like, okay, and the thing I wrote in giant all caps that I will go on about for extended periods is the cinematography of this movie.
Oh, absolutely,
fucking amazing. It's, even if you think this movie's stupid and boring and whatever you think, just watch it for how they introduce these monsters and the moments they give them. It's fucking stunning, man. And I love the way Ghidorah was done. I loved how he looked. I thought he had weight. And if you go back and watch the old Godzilla films, the rubber suits, like, Ghidorah had a real bad habit of having kind of like grandpa's tonic neck, where it's just sort of, it's all over the place. Got a bad case of Stevie Wonders, and obviously because it's a suit, and then there's like a guy holding the fishing line pulling it, but they made this thing have weight and presence, and it was built up, and I loved it. And they gave my girl Mothra had a lot of good moments too, which I thought just beautiful.
Mothra at the waterfall, it's that was used extensively in the trailers. And really that's what this movie did with the cinematography. If anyone should be given credit for this movie's success, if it is successful or not, it's Lawrence Sher, who is the cinematographer, who did that amazing Mothra waterfall shot, who did King Ghidorah kind of emerging from the dust, just very slowly coming into view. And then there's that shot in the final battle of him with the electrical grid that is just fucking amazing.
Yeah. And did
so,
you see how the Ghidorah standing on top of the volcano with the cross in view? That was supposed to be the Francis Bacon painting.
Yes.
Yeah. I didn't know if that hit me, and I did a little like kind of like happy dance in my chair when I saw that, because it's just one of those like, oh, that's the new wallpaper on my computer.
I didn't get the reference during the movie, but then afterwards when I was kind of writing up notes, that's when I saw someone making the connection, and I was like, oh shit, that's really good. Yeah. And you're right about Mothra. They really did do her good. You didn't see really a lot of her larval form, but the redesign of her as a moth is amazing. I love that they give her, because these long legs and hands and pinchers and whatever to attack with. Because, you watch those old Toho films and she's just like, a slug with wings. And
yeah,
so
she's a moth.
All she's doing is just flapping her wings really hard and blowing Godzilla to the ground. And, it's silly, but it works because everyone's in a rubber costume. But here, I think they really did her well. I don't know. I didn't care for Rodan's face.
No, Rodan had looked like a dude, kind of. Rodan looked weird. I wrote down Rodan is the Bob the Goon from the first Batman movie of Godzilla films. He just was he's like, yeah, boss, what do you need? If he had a cigar in his mouth and talked like that, I wouldn't be surprised.
But I love the fact that he had, kind of lava on his wings. I thought that was a nice little touch, but.
And I liked the scene when those jets were chasing him. I liked kind of some of the fight there was fun.
Yeah. And, you have all those other kaiju and they are really extensions of the Muto in that I don't think they're all that interesting.
No, so when the beginning of the movie had these sort of pictograph images of different kaiju, and the ones that would be shown later. And I was and some of them were like, oh, that looks like some Shadow of the Colossus. I think the Behemoth was one that was looks like a goddamn Shadow of the Colossus. I kind of like the spider one just because it sort of had a Lovecraftian thing going with the big tentacles and all. They weren't really in the movie very much. Then my favorite one of them though was the fucking woolly mammoth. That I was just like this thing is just looking for grass. It's just looking for to graze. It's just walking through a city with tusks that are the size of a city block, and you just feel bad for it because it's probably well, I can't eat any of this. Where am I going?
Yeah. And you did have this film. Obviously, it was going to do this. They kind of changed the backstories for all the four central kaiju or three central kaiju of the film, or I say kaiju, titans, whatever. Mothra was no longer from Infant Island, and she didn't have those tiny little Asian ladies singing to her.
How much did they hire that one, the girl from Rush Hour, just to be the kind of substitute for those two little Asian girls?
I guess she's going to be in the next one as well.
Yeah.
And then you have Rodan.
They include her song too.
I'm sorry, what?
In the Mothra theme, they actually go back. If you haven't heard the actual Mothra song they sing from the 60s, first off, it's an awesome song, but it's really iconic. They did, and when Mothra appeared, they did include her theme, the melody of it, which was pretty cool.
Oh, I didn't even notice that.
Yeah.
Also, props to Bear McCreary, who did the score for this film.
Yeah.
He also did the score for last year's God of War. He did an outstanding job. It's a wonderfully retro throwback score to this movie.
He's killing it.
Yeah. And so then you had Rodan, who's in Mexico and, no longer in Japan, but I guess not every creature needs to be in Japan. But I'm glad that they kept Ghidorah as an alien.
Me too. Although the way they introduced that, and they could have, there's a million different ways they could have done that better. Where it was just a girl from Rush Hour was like, maybe he's not part. I'm not going to try to do an Asian accent. That's racist. It was like, maybe he's not part of maybe Ghidorah is not part of the food chain. Oh, you mean like an alien? Yes. And that was it. We confirmed he's an alien.
No, I think somewhere in the film, she was looking at relics and said, the monster who fell from the sky.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So, well, there's still, you could have found something, a crater, a meteor, whatever. But yeah, it was very much by the way, he's an alien.
Also, Monster Who Fell from the Sky. I just want to point out that There's so much goddamn cliche dialogue in this movie. I thought my eyes were going to pop out of my head from rolling so much.
Yeah. If the dad if you had a drinking game for every time the dad was like, "This is for my wife and my daughter," I mean, like, okay.
You would be drunk if you drank every time he said, "Aren't you going to kill them?" or something to that effect.
Yeah, really.
And then you have Godzilla, and I think Godzilla actually kind of got the worst treatment of all of the four main titans in this film, because you have that scene near the beginning where he's underwater and his dorsal fins are just lighting up, and I love that.
Yeah,
but then you never really get another interesting moment with Godzilla in this film.
Yeah, I think they tried really hard to make him kind of connect to the people. The scene where the Ken Watanabe goes and touches him and says goodbye is like, trying to kind of opens his eyes and all that. I didn't feel like, I think they were trying to have Godzilla acknowledge the people, and that first scene worked really well. But I think the rest of the time, if anything, Godzilla was like, "Y'all need to get the fuck out of my way. I'm trying to fight this monster right now." Yeah, I agree. I like that opening scene. That was another, actually, under my cinematography thing, I wrote down that bit with Godzilla kind of doing his display was stunning, stunning. And it kind of gave him a grace underwater that you would not expect from a thing that's like 200 meters tall. So that was really cool. But
yeah. And one of the things with Roland Emmerich's Godzilla that people like to say doesn't count is that, that Godzilla in Toho terms is now referred to just as Zilla, because they took the god out of it. They basically just made him a giant lizard. And, it's hard to disagree with that. Godzilla in that movie runs away from helicopter fire. Godzilla don't run away from helicopter fire. What the fuck is wrong with you?
Yeah, not at all. Godzilla doesn't care about I loved the scene at the Antarctic base when King Ghidorah appears, and those troops stopped and turned around and started shooting with the machine gun. Oh, I felt so bad for them because that was dumb. It's pointless.
They just get evaporated right then.
Yeah, just immediately.
But for me, one of the things that I do like about the 2014 Godzilla film is that, it didn't make him into an animal. He was still, Godzilla. He was still a force to be reckoned with. And I kind of feel like they took that away in this movie.
He got his ass kicked a lot.
Well, not only did he get his ass, and I'm fine with him getting his ass kicked by a creature that apparently just woke up frozen, fully powered, and aware of all of its senses and abilities.
CJ, if we go down that road, we're not going to like many movies now, are we?
That is true. In this movie, they kind of revert Godzilla back to what Roland Emmerich did, and they just make him an animal. He's called a monster, but then people are like, no, he's an animal. They track him like an animal. I don't know. I don't think that is the right direction to take Godzilla, to kind of, take him off his pedestal as what is essentially a force of nature, because that's what Godzilla is, and just turn him into a really big lizard that we now track around the ocean based on feeding patterns.
Yeah, the moment they introduced the Echo thing and how they could so it talks to them but can also control them, the way it stopped Mothra from freaking out. I didn't care for that. I don't think these creatures. I think it should be how Lovecraft introduced his monsters. They're unknowable. It would be like an ant trying to comprehend a human. I think that should be us in Godzilla. It shouldn't be this thing where we can have the human Echo combined with Godzilla Echo, and all of a sudden monsters will do what we want. That doesn't. That doesn't sit well with me in terms of how they treat the character. And I think they tried to have those little moments where it was like Godzilla connecting with us to show an intelligence there, or at least a recognition. But you could also say the same thing of how your dog recognizes you when you walk through the door. So
yeah, I mean. The one thing that 2014 Godzilla never did is justify why Godzilla isn't trying to kill us all the time, because we were trying to kill him during the 60s with all those nuclear tests. That was, one of the reveals of that movie, and basically every Godzilla movie, is that we woke him up with a nuclear test, and then we spent the next 25 nuclear tests trying to kill him. So they never give a reason of why he doesn't immediately start eating every human like he's, Lizzie in Rampage.
Yeah.
But I really think that and this is another sign of it, is that Godzilla, or Hollywood, really doesn't understand what Godzilla is, and it really never has. In the original Godzilla, Gojira, when it was brought over to the United States as Godzilla King of the Monsters with Raymond Burr, they not only photoshopped Raymond Burr into a lot of this film to give it a more American-centric plotline, but they cut out a lot of what the Japanese were trying to say with Godzilla. Godzilla is, and has always been, an anti-nuclear weapons allegory. Like I said, in both movies, in the original Godzilla and the 2014 film, he's awakened by nuclear bomb tests. He's always been the terror of the nuclear bomb, something Japan would know quite well about. And yet, in this movie, they make a nuclear bomb the fucking hero of the film.
And they have it to where these Titans, all of them, I guess, except for King Ghidorah, emanate some kind of radioactive energy that causes the world to, like, the plants to grow and crops to thrive and stuff.
Exactly.
But that's all like based. Yeah, that's a really good point.
I mean, when you have Godzilla in his little palace of lava somewhere at the core of the earth, I guess, Ken Watanabe's character, he sacrifices himself to nuke. By blowing up a nuke to recharge Godzilla, or as Bradley Whitford said, Sarazawa got that lizard juiced up. I mean, first of all, this area is supposed to be super highly radiated. Like, they don't want to go in there because they don't want to kill all their sperm or anything. And yet, when he takes off his mask and
he's fine,
and like, shouldn't his skin immediately start to paper off?
That's what I was thinking, because they're in the sub, and they're, I don't know, X amount of feet, miles or whatever away from. They're in like the tunnel chamber going towards Godzilla's house. Yeah. And Ken Watanabe is like I'm gonna go and do this, and he's like looks distressed in his little mini sub, and I assumed that when he got out of the sub and started walking, he would stumble, he would be like fucked up and coughing, and maybe coughing up blood. Maybe have like his skin would start sloughing off, or like sores or something. He looked like he just ate a big meal of barbecue, and the room didn't have air conditioning. That's what it looked like.
He looked so sluggish.
Yeah, he looked tired and sluggish and sweaty. He did not look like his ass was in Chernobyl, though, which is what he should have looked like.
But like you said, with the Titans leaving them radiation that's really good for the planet. No, that is not the point of Godzilla. The point of Godzilla is radiation poisoning will kill you. The fact that they have, I mean, the last movie at least tried to make a point that citizens die when these monsters appear. And this movie tried to do its best to wipe that completely out. Like, it doesn't seem to want you to know that the 11,000 people who were in that little Mexican island that Rodan popped out of, yeah, they all died. None of them survived that, except for like the 4 people who made it into that Osprey that landed back on their flying ship.
Yeah, it's the human cost for these Godzilla movies is always, that's not always, but in this case, the newer movies is very like it's and our son died, but that's like, oh, okay, but hey, now we're going to show you this cool fight, and you see these little, even all the deaths that you see, because it's never like civilians, it's all like King Ghidorah using his lightning to vaporize soldiers or something like that. But like when Godzilla went thermonuclear towards the end of the movie, you goddamn right, that was in a major metropolitan area that like tens of thousands of people died. That area is uninhabitable now.
No. His nuclear power is good. You see, that's why it's so sad that their son was crushed to death instead of just being exposed to his apparently not toxic radiation, because then he just would have been like a superhero. Gosh, if he just only lived.
Well, it's I'm not surprised that Hollywood doesn't get it right, but I will say that in terms of spectacle, like when Godzilla emerged from the water and he was all like juiced up, Sugazawa, whatever, got him juiced up, and he was like that bit where he was melting stuff as he was walking, from the heat. That was fucking awesome.
Absolutely.
Like And it was supposed to be. It was a spectacle, and I love that. But it is for a Godzilla film. I don't think it gets the heart. It doesn't understand the heart of Godzilla, like you said. But I think in terms of showing the spectacle of the fights, the presence of the monsters, I think it was a hell of a lot of fun. And that's all I wanted. I would have liked I would have liked to believe that it's somewhere and there's a world where this movie has the heart, this story, and the cinematography and the fights and everything. But I will always have the original. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, the one thing with the monsters is, it's annoying that every fight took place, with the exception of the Rodan versus Ghidorah, at night. And if it wasn't at night, it was being affected by Ghidorah's hurricane summoning powers, apparently, which really makes that creature the one who is a force of nature in this film. So there's never really like a clear battle between any of the monsters, which, okay, I get it. Animation is expensive. And if you have it on a clear day, you either have to make it look less real, like the Pacific Rim sequel, the giant monster or giant robots in that didn't look nearly as good as they did in the first one, or you have to just spend an inordinate amount of money trying to get rid of every little blemish possible that some jackass YouTuber is going to make a 20-minute video about, calling your movie a failure. Yeah. But let's actually talk about the end of this movie. So you have Vera Farmiga and Millie Bobby Brown kind of second guessing everything that they just put into play. Oh, and by the way, all of Washington, D.C. is dead. Yeah. Everyone there has been murdered.
And by the way, if you have this like echo thing, I know that Charles Dance said, like, we don't need it anymore. You may, since it's like the one thing that can fuck up your plan, you may want to keep it like just not on a table in the middle of a room.
Well, we've already figured out that no one in this film has any sort of competency amongst them, be it Monarch with their lack of security, or a fail-safe to kill the monsters if they try to escape, or them just not, I don't know, throwing that into a locker, throwing the orca into a locker.
Or just putting it on a high shelf where like an 11-year-old girl can't reach it.
So we get to the end of this film and it's in Boston, and that is a weird choice for a final act. First of all, I didn't hear one god-awful Boston accent anywhere in this film.
I mean, I was really expecting like there to be like a hot dog vendor, be like, over here. So, it's.
I mean, when they were evacuating people from Fenway Park, I didn't hear one person say, "Hey, move, you freaking queer." I mean, it's Boston. That's what they say, and not one of them, for the 8 seconds they were on film, said the N-word. I mean, come on.
That was impressive.
This is supposed to be Boston, people.
They did. I did see an Irish flag floating in the breeze, so at least they got that covered. And somebody, no doubt, was playing Flogging Molly's on their car radio.
Definitely. I mean, at least with San Francisco, you have the Golden Gate Bridge to destroy, which is, by the way, the only thing that ever happens to it when San Francisco is in a movie. But with Boston, I mean, what are you going to destroy? What, is Godzilla going to step on a statue of a founding father like it's a Lego brick? I mean, what? Who
I guess
fucking
that's why
cares?
they said it was in Fenway Park. That's something I could think.
Yeah, I mean, that's the only thing I can name from Boston. But I mean, I don't give a shit about a baseball stadium. Stadium.
I would have loved to have seen it set in like DeKalb, Georgia. We're gonna destroy the TJ Maxx. No.
But yeah, so you have this film, or you have the ending of it, and this is really when you get Mothra coming back in to really show off what she can do. And I love the fight between Mothra and Rodan. I wish it was a little bit longer. I wish this entire final spectacle fight between Godzilla and Mothra and Rodan and King Ghidorah was longer, because it was really building up to it. But we already had so much monster fighting beforehand that I don't think it really had the impact that it should have.
Yeah. Now that brings up a good point. Do you think there can be too much of a good thing?
Yes.
Yeah. I thinking about that in hindsight, I kind of agree. I think if you would have cut out maybe one of the encounters between Godzilla and Ghidorah and had that really this like climactic showdown thing, I think it would have had a little more oomph. I liked how it went, but I absolutely agree with that point. Yeah.
And then, I saw this on a giant screen, so I didn't have any trouble seeing anything that was going on. Did you have any visual problems with, them fighting with all the rain and the dust and the smoke and everything?
No, there were some times where it got a little visually kind of muddied from that. I saw it on a big screen whatever IMAX, blah blah blah. So I could see everything. I would imagine watching this at home may be a little bit of a pain in the ass.
Yeah. And I love that Millie Bobby Brown is at Fenway Park, and then she runs away, and then she's seemingly miles away at her house because they're so far in the distance. And God, this movie does not get distance at all. It's like when they're flying around in that giant jet. They're like, okay, we're going to be there in 2 minutes. Okay, so we just have no concept of time in this film. Time and distance do not matter. This is a fucking TARDIS we're flying in. We can go anywhere at any time.
Pretty much. And that thing like just never lands. Just always flying. Just always up there. It's great.
Never runs out of gas.
Nope. And I would have liked to seen the Rodan Mothra fight be longer as well. I liked like kind of when Mothra busted out the little stabby pincer thing through Rodan's. The look on Rodan's face was beautiful. It was kind of just like a what the fuck. That was very, very human look. And the only thing I didn't like, and I kind of expected it, was disappointed, was when Mothra died. But I kind of figured that was going to be the catalyst, and the fact that she had like her little Mothra dust that fell onto Godzilla that like powered him up, and it was. I was a little disappointed in that, but I'm like, okay, well, you've served your purpose, Mothra, and I hate that the Mothra kind of gets relegated to that.
Yeah, and I love one of my favorite things about this movie is how you get the throwback to, I believe it's 1985 Godzilla with Nuclear Godzilla, where he's glowing red and he's about to erupt. I hate how they got to it with the whole setting off a nuke to power him up, but I love the look of it, and I love what he pulls off there. Again, like you said, they probably didn't evacuate everyone in that city, and there are thousands of people who are dead. Yeah. And then when you have Vera Farmiga on the ground, she's like, "Long live the king!" Like, I don't fucking care about her. Again,
really.
She just allowed the entirety of the Washington, D.C. metro area to be murdered by these two giant monsters.
Yeah,
you were never evil enough for me to care about your redemption. Basically.
Yeah, you were so annoying the entire film. Just fuck off.
But I guess it doesn't matter, because in the end, she was right. After you have that Godzilla, the Lion King Pride Rock bow down with all the other kaiju.
That was like, I watched that and I thought, oh yeah, King of the Monsters, duh. And it was just like, okay, guys, we don't need to beat us in the head with this. He can just be an apex predator. Like the other ones can just fucking avoid him, because that's how that works, you know? Yeah. Like they're not all they're not all psychically connected.
So that was ridiculous to me. That entire sequence of them, I mean, literally bowing down.
Yeah.
Was just dumb.
Like, I swear to God, Rodan curtsied.
He did.
Like, God damn it.
But then you have the end of the film where the credits start, and you have all of the newspaper clippings and the news stories. And
hey, real quick, before we talk about the ending, can I just point out one really great thing was when the smoke cleared from Godzilla's thermonuclear thing, and Godzilla had like King Ghidorah's last head in his mouth, and then breathed the radioactive breath out, turn it blue, and then disintegrate it. That was awesome. That
to me was the only moment that came somewhat close to matching 2014's Godzilla breathing atomic fire down the throat of a Muto. Like that to me is one of the most iconic scene out of that movie. And for me, the thing I'm always going to remember about this one is Ghidorah on the electrical grid. Like that to me was the most visually stunning, badass thing this movie did.
Absolutely.
The head in the mouth comes close.
Yeah. I just wanted to point. That was just a kind of little mini golf clap moment for me. I just wanted to point it out.
Yeah. So we get to the end, and you have all these newspaper clippings, and you have all these little news stories. And guess what? The villains were right. Letting all of the monsters loose actually does improve our lives, because now we have Titan shit to power our homes, and Godzilla's an attraction for Carnival Cruise Lines. I mean,
it's just like I like the idea of them trying to figure out like how do we make a post-Godzilla world that still functions with people in it? Like, I think that's kind of an interesting concept, but I don't like. How do you're gonna have these things walk around? They're still like giant fucking monsters that are walking around the earth, and like, how do you what happens if they just circle back around and stomp over the city you've made? you know, I mean, it's not like they're watching where they're going. It was so silly. I thought it was funny. Oh, there's another Mothra egg, so sure, we'll just get another one of her. That's fine.
There's always a new Mothra egg.
Yeah,
even in the Toho films.
Yeah, it's just one of those things where it just okay, guys. I did like the Titan poop is a viable reusable energy resource, and then of course the inevitable King Kong mention.
Yes.
But here's my thing. I don't understand how King Kong can go up against Godzilla in any, and obviously they're going to team up because you're not going to have your two biggest players kill each other. But it's like Godzilla is just this thermonuclear beast, and King Kong is amazing, but like he was not nearly that big in King of the Monsters, and he was not nearly that tough. So it's really, I'm curious how they're going to make that work.
Well, I mean, King Kong has been, in Skull Island, they made him bigger, so he is as big as Godzilla is this time.
Do you think so? And maybe it's just a size thing. I'm off on it, but he was definitely smaller in the first one, but he seems smaller to me. But yeah, I'm sure they'll make him the same size.
I mean, he may be a little bit smaller, but I think they're going to be comparable. It's not like trying to connect 2014 Godzilla to Peter Jackson's King Kong. That would be just stepping on him and the movie's over.
Yeah, that's certainly fair.
But you had at the end of the film, the newspaper clippings were saying that all of the kaiju or the Titans were heading to Skull Island. So maybe we'll see more of them. And I mean, you were right. If they didn't go there, what are they going to do? It's not like that woolly mammoth is going to tiptoe around India and make sure not to step on anyone. It's going to kill people. I
feel like that woolly mammoth would just end up in like Utah or like Missouri and just graze there for the rest of eternity. I mean, what would it do otherwise? How's it going to get there? Is it just going to walk through the ocean? So many questions.
I mean, it did before to get from where it was to Boston.
Yeah, that's fair. But yeah, I'm excited for the idea of the King Kong versus Godzilla. I'm curious what shape it's going to take.
Yeah, and I'm really curious to how dumb they're going to make the inclusion of Ghidorah, because you have the post-credit scene where Charles Dance gets that Ghidorah head that was ripped off during the Mexico battle. And it's like, okay, so what are you going to do? Are you God, please, like, go full camp and make Mecha Ghidorah. Like, I would love that.
This is the next, I was going to say, this is the next step. You Mecha Ghidorah, Mecha Godzilla. These are the next steps in this film franchise. Absolutely, 100%.
So in the next movie, Godzilla vs. Kong comes out next March because from what I've read, Legendary Pictures license of the Godzilla characters ends next year. So either they renew it or this is going to be it. I guess we should get to the nuts and bolts of, like, did you like this movie?
Yeah, I loved it.
You loved King of the Monsters?
Yeah, it was the spectacle, the bits of I like the fights, the cinematography just whooped my ass, man. There were so many, like, especially the moment too where it's the shot of the submarine descending down, really like being pulled in, and there's Godzilla there. I love that. I had a good time with this film. It was exactly what I wanted it to be, and I don't get to say that too often. It could it have been more? Absolutely, 100%. But I loved it. I really did. I couldn't recommend it enough if you're a Godzilla fan or you just like big monsters fighting. For me, the cinematography and the score really, really sell this film more than anything else in this movie. Mm-hmm. The monster battles are okay. I wish that Godzilla was a little more lively and not so just bored, as he kind of seemed to be in a lot of the film. He looked troubled.
He did.
Yeah.
But I didn't like this movie. And I feel so bad saying that because I fucking love Godzilla. But
sure.
I mean, at the end of this, when I got home after seeing this movie, I'm just like, movie fucking sucked. I've had time to think about it. It wasn't as bad as I was making it out to be then, but it's just like any time that it wasn't, Godzilla or any of the monsters on screen, it was just dumb, inane, stupid dialogue, story I didn't care about, characters I didn't care about, always making the same mistakes about Godzilla that past Hollywood films have done, making him out to be less of a god and more of an animal. It turned the legendary monsterverse into a film universe that doesn't really get the point of Godzilla. And that's kind of fine. If America wants to make its own American version of Godzilla, it has its right to. But Godzilla exists because America used to do evil shit and didn't care about the consequences of what happened. And we've never gotten that out of any of these films.
No, and that's completely 100% correct. And I think I don't know if it misses the point. I think it just chose not to for that to be the point, because
Yeah.
they wanted to make a big Hollywood summer blockbuster, big monsters fighting. They don't want you to think about death, the human cost, the reasons why Godzilla exists, and the fact that a nuclear bomb is the hero of the film is very telling. But I think for the cinematography, the music was great. And see, I'm the kind of person, I like the fact that the human people were unlikable and the acting was bad and the dialogue was shit. I like that. To me, that adds to the experience of everything, because I think the people are just there. They're just annoying and they're lame. They're there, and it's the way it's always been for these, except maybe the first Godzilla movie. And with the twins for Mothra. But all the people are like, "What do we do with Godzilla? I don't know. Let's shoot rockets at him all day." Nobody gives a fuck about that. But it adds to the overall cheesiness of it. Had it been in a movie that tried to have heart but still contained all that, it would have pissed me off a lot, because then you're failing hard. On this one, it knew what it was and it went hard to the pavement for it.
I think the bad dialogue and the bad acting would have worked for me better if this movie was a little more camp, because that's what really works for anything after Godzilla versus Mothra all the way up to Godzilla 1985 is when every movie is just him fighting a new kaiju. It's those movies have a camp factor to them. And the problem with this one is, outside of, Bradley Whitford's terrible comedic relief, it didn't have enough of that. And I think if they would have embraced that a little more, if they would have gone straight Bride of Frankenstein and really camped it up, I would have enjoyed it more.
Yeah.
But like you said, if you love giant monster fights, this is better than anything that we've got. The monster fights in this one are, outside of the fact that we don't have that really cool scene of Godzilla breathing down the throat of a Muto or anything equivalent. I think the fights in this one are more fun to watch than in Godzilla 2014.
Yeah. And I will say that I think had Gareth Edwards done this movie, it would have been a much better film.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. I think it would have been a tighter film. I think that a lot of the script, the plot, everything errors would have been taken care of, at least for the most part. And yeah, it would have been a better film. But for what it was, I enjoyed it a lot. And I can certainly understand why you didn't, and I get that. Mm-hmm. And, I think if anyone's on the fence about it, if you don't, catch a Sunday matinee at a discount and you won't be disappointed. Or maybe you will, but it's still a good way to kill 2 hours.
So the next movie, just to get this out there, it comes out in March of next year. And it's being directed by Adam Wingard, who did the Death Note movie on Netflix, and also the horror film, which I really like, called You're Next.
So he did You're Next. Okay.
It might be good. I'm interested. I hope that that just goes full Gonzo with its monster fights, because I know in this one they said that they were gonna, no holds bars. I still felt like a lot of it was reserved of where it should have been. It should have been a lot more. There should have been a lot more fighting than there was, and maybe in places I care about instead of a fucking Monarch site somewhere in the world.
Yeah, it would have been interesting to see the actual collateral damage, like that. Where is it? Is it in Brazil or South America? That giant statue of Jesus.
Yes.
Like to have them knock it over, or have Ghidorah bite it in half, or just something. Maybe that's a little too on the nose, but something to show the human element, the destruction of civilization from these creatures existing would have been interesting. And yeah, going to Skull Island, I'd just make it destroy all monsters, make them all like a big goddamn fucking free for all, and then you throw in Mecha Ghidorah, you throw in Mecha Godzilla, which could be super cool or really cheesy. Make sure you have the finger missiles, always a favorite of mine. And just I think have fun with it. But you actually absolutely right. You have to go with this one. By this point, you just have to go full camp. There's no you're not gonna. Oh, by the way, nuclear thermonuclear war is bad. Whatever.
Oh, but boy, did they try to make some of that. Some moralizing of the characters, like, oh, humans, we have so much garbage and poverty and yada yada yada. God, we get it.
Real quick, where did that fucking the mom? You know her name, I don't. But where the fuck did she get that goddamn PowerPoint presentation just loaded up to show all that shit? Did she just do that? Did you spend an hour beforehand making the call? Like, I'm going to load up, here's some trash. Here's a slum in India. Here's, some toxic waste. And then just hit play on that?
Oh, and by the way,
man?
to have the video play but still be part of the video conference, I set up video conferences as my current job. It's not that easy to do sometimes because sometimes the equipment doesn't work with you. But goddamn, did it work perfect in this movie?
That was the funniest
and
shit.
by the way, they're like thousands of miles away from wherever this flying ship is, so that reception is amazing.
Yeah, and she's on like a laptop in the sub basement of that place. Great.
All right, that's just about it. Occams, I want to thank you for joining me on this fun conversation.
My pleasure, man.
All right, and thank you for listening. This has been Spoilsport.